Hello everybody, welcome to my talk. It's called Result Grouping with Match Keys and was prepared by Dorian, Merz, André, Lahmann, Stefan, Winkler and me from 2 German developer teams in Leipzig and Cornelius. My name is Cornelius Amzar and I work as software developer at BSZ, which means Library Service Center. I will now show you I will now introduce you to the topic of deduplication and show you an example how it's working in the front end. Then I will hand over to Dorian, who will talk about the technical part and show you how you can install a module. Yeah, the starting point is we have about 170 million records in our index, but there are many duplicates because in Germany we have 6 library networks that represent 6 different regions of Germany. So we have 6 different acquisitions of each item or of the most items. And users are, of course, confused by this fact. They see multiple times the same book and they don't understand why. You can't always use filtering because sometimes you want to see every record that's in the index. For example, in interlibrary long context. So we need deduplication. First, we try this by using full deduplication. But as you all know, full deduplication is a very complex, time-consuming, and error-prone process because you have to compare each data field to each possible match. So it's very difficult to decide which is the better record. And there has to be a weighted decision logic. Yeah, so this is way too complex for our purposes. Cool. Yeah, using a more pragmatic approach, we were able to find a good but not always perfect solution that's called Solr grouping. Solr grouping is kind of lightweight deduplication, which means it doesn't compare the whole record, but it just compares the most important strings of the record. Yes, it's based on a simple match key that contains a format string, for example, article, book, journal, ebook, just 5 or 6 different formats. Then the most important part, the ISBN and the year. And as fallback, if you don't have an ISBN, we also use first author and title. But this is well used because the most books and journals have a numeric ID, ISBN or ISSN. Yes, the match key can be easily computed during indexing. You don't need difficult comparisons, and this Solr grouping performs much better than we expected. And it's really an improvement for end users. I will now show you how this looks in the front end. It's a little slow today. One moment. Here it is. Okay, grouping is disabled now. And you can see the library networks here. These are the German library networks. And you see we have multiple times the same item, this book here. And there are small differences, for example, in the publisher field, but it's the same edition. There are also online editions, of course. Yes. And now we have this checkbox here, show duplicates. This is stored as a cookie, so it's saved across sessions. When we enable this, all items with the same match key will be grouped together to a master record. And we have a button here to open the duplicates. You can see the number of results goes from 12 without grouping to 5 with grouping. So it's a smaller result. And this collapsible feature is done by bootstraps, collapsible. So you don't need to code this by yourself. And you can see here different networks. Okay, you can see the match key in the staff view. Here, that's the match key. And all records with this match key are just grouped together by Solr. Okay, now I finished the front-end presentation and hand over to Dorian.
So now you all see our faces, what is not what I wanted to do. All right, so now that you all know what you can get, you may or may not all want to know how you can get it. And that's what I actually want to show you. It's I want to show you that it's rather simple to install the grouping feature for yourself as long as you have a VuFind 8 installation and your index prepared. As Cornelius just said, you have to index a match string for all the records. So for every record you want to have grouped with other records, of course. This is some decision you have to make in your index, which is not necessarily simple. That decision on what match string you have. But if you have finally chosen one match string or the way of production of your match string, then you can start integrating all that into VuFind. And I want to present the rather simple way of integration of that via our Composer package. So some weeks and months ago, we presented a pull request 1424 to VuFind that helps with integrating templates that are provided via a VuFind module that itself is a package for Composer. And I want to show you that it actually and really works. So that was too fast. All right, so I'm just doing it live so that you all can see that it really does the job. All right, so what we want to do is, of course, integrate the module via Composer in the Composer JSON and install it after that. Then we want to see it in our templates. So this is why I chose the result list template and want to integrate our two templates right now that we provide with the module. This one, the other one is the button, so the link that collapses or uncollapses the group of grouped records, and this one here is actually the set of grouped records. So so that you all know that is really live, I want to present you, this is the result list I had without grouping. And if I now refresh the page, it should give an error. Obviously, because I did not register the module already, which I do in application config PHP, of course, and I just type in the name of our module here, VuFind results grouping, and this should do it if you did not forget your configuration. So yeah, I've registered the module here, and in config.ini, I have to say that yes, I do want to group records, and that I want to choose the field named match_str in our case. You can choose other fields, but there are some slight restrictions on the data type of the field. So yeah, be prepared that you will need a string field. And we added a limit for performance reasons. So these 4 simple steps should now give us an installation where the grouping is actually running. If my network didn't leave me. So here we go. This is what Cornelius has just shown with a actually productive system we now have in our developer system with a stock VuFind underneath. So here we've grouped single records most of the time, but here, for example, we have a group that is a bit larger. And yeah, it highly depends on what structure your match string has. But you see, it is, as I said, very, very simple to integrate that module from the Composer package. What I did not show you right now is the checkbox Cornelius has shown. And this is because we forgot something in our pull request back then, and we will present a new pull request in the future. I hope that also seamlessly integrates not only the templates, but also the translation files and JavaScript code. So if you have provided code in .js files, they are not already integrated. We have the code inside the package, so you can all get it, but it's not already seamlessly integrating. So what we've done is installing the module, registering the module, doing those 2 simple render calls to templates provided with the module, and doing some configuration. And that's basically it. That's what we've just seen. And you can all get the code as a Composer package, as I said, or via our Think GitLab, and then you can install it at home or in your department, and then use the grouping feature for yourself. Thank you. Are there any questions?
If no one else has questions, oh wait, there's a question. I'll let that one go first. So the question is, how is the relation between your package and the Ferber feature introduced in VuFind 7.1? And are there any plans to contribute the module into the VuFind org repository?
That's a nice question, and the difference is that you can choose whatever match string you would like, and that we really are focusing on what Cornelius showed, that we have actual duplicates in our indexes. So when you gather different sources of metadata, you will most likely have the same record from different sources, and we don't want to erase them from the result lists, but we want to give the user the possibility to see all of them without cluttering the result list. So we're not wanting to show we have video and a book and whatever from of the same type or theme or subject, but we want to group actual duplicates.
I would like to add that, adding to the previous answer, that the FRBR or the record versions support is trying to group together all the different versions of a work, while, like Dorian said, Deduplication tries to group the same work. So with FRBR support, you will get different say editions of the work or different formats of the work together. So there could be like a ebook and book about the same thing, and even maybe something completely different like a movie, and you would get those groups together, while Deduplication doesn't do that.
Or maybe to add some more details to it, actually it depends on how you choose the match key. Because if you include or if you exclude the format from the match key and only limit the match key to, let's say, the author and the title, you could probably group all the different formats together. But this is also the main point of this whole implementation, that it's not about intellectually group records or make like a hierarchy like in Ferber, but more to reduce the result list if you have lots of duplicates, and to make it for the user easier to navigate, and yes, for instance, to group lots of editions, which are useful for instance, textbooks and all that stuff that is very often indexed in library catalogues. And regarding the question to contribute the module to the VuFind repository, well, we have actively decided right now against this, because we said, well, we would care about the module ourselves, and also to show that the integration of such a module is easily possible by a composer, also as an attempt to maybe motivate others that those little chunks of features could be put into isolated packages and then be pulled in by a composer, which is not to say that it's for us it's a no-go to integrate it in the VuFind community, of course, right? I mean, if there's any if there's high demand, it would be no problem to integrate it. But for now, we thought it would be a nice way of showing that it's also possible not to let VuFind grow, but make it more like a toolkit, and to integrate all different little packages.
So another question from the chat. So will you also keep the module compatible with newer VuFind versions?
It's our intention to, yes.
And just to sort of echo what André said, I think it is great to have an ecosystem where there are VuFind compatible modules that live somewhere other than the VuFind org organization, because I think it does encourage growth. But by the same token, I certainly would welcome these things to be moved into VuFind org if that is valuable. You know, if a lot of people are dependent on it and we want the whole community to come together to maintain it, that's one thing. And if an organization is willing to volunteer to maintain a component, that's also great. So, you know, we can see how this evolves, but I appreciate the work that was done to create the mechanisms that make this possible, because I think it opens up some growth possibilities for the project. I also just wanted to comment that as far as integration goes, I would recommend, rather than editing composer.json and the application config, that you could also, I think, do it by creating a composer.local.json and using the VuFind local modules environment variable in the Apache config to achieve the same effect without touching core files. And I imagine that the demo was just done for simplicity and speed, but wanted to note that if you're interested in strictly separating your customizations from core code, I think it's totally possible with this to maintain that separation.
Yeah, actually, we normally have the way you just described, and I did choose the way shown here to have it as simple as possible.
I also had a quick question, which is that I've worked with result grouping on some other projects, and I did have some performance issues there, but this was years ago and perhaps on a lower resource Solr. So I was a little surprised that it seems to perform really well with millions of records. I'd love to hear more about the scale at which it works. And also, my past experiments led me to a situation where sometimes the facet counts were confusing because they would reflect all the records, even though the group numbers were smaller. And I didn't know if you had run into that or had any thoughts about preventing it from confusing your users.
Well, here in Leipzig, we are just in the test phase for this whole setup, actually in our index. But I know that Cornelius and Stefan are using it in their catalogues for quite a long time. I don't know if Stefan or Cornelius, if you can say something about the performance and the general problems you encountered.
Yes, we also saw these performance problems in the beginning, and we had to tweak our index. We had, for example, to stop users from sending requests with only 2 or 3 characters. So this is not possible in our front end anymore. And we also made small tweaks in the counting of the grouped documents. There are 2 versions how to count these grouped documents, and one is faster, one is slower, and so we had to choose the faster one. And the facets isn't really a problem. We didn't change anything in our user interface for this. Maybe it's disturbing someone. Our users don't say anything about it.
I think perhaps all of our users look at facets less than we think they do. Also, it occurred to me that it might be worth commenting with regard to the difference between the record versions functionality and this grouping functionality, that I think one key technical difference, apart from the conceptual piece, is that in result grouping, you need to have a single grouping value that's, you know, the definitive key for each record, whereas the record versions creates multiple keys for every record and then tries to find as many matches as possible between things. So definitely one is very much about narrowing down and the other is about broadening and connecting. And certainly these things can complement each other. So we still have 5 minutes if there are any further questions, but if everyone is happy, I will just say thanks again for another very interesting presentation, and I look forward to working together to get those last bits of module-based extensibility working. I think it's really exciting to see this, you know, proof of the concept we've been talking about for a few years now. It's really great.